Awesome, Danny. I'll turn it to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I grew up in Wisconsin, played quarterback at the University of North Dakota, where I'm currently at now. Coached here for 13 years from 2011 to 2023, and then went to South Dakota State for one season in 2024, and then we ended up at Washington State last year in 2025, and now I'm back at UND. So I've moved three times in the last 3 years. Like I was at the same spot for 13 years, and now I'm back in that spot. It's been a kind of a whirlwind. It's been really fun though. Coached at South Dakota State, Mark Gronowski, who just signed with the Dolphins. He was at Iowa last year, and then our year at Wazoo was really interesting. We won 7 games, won a bowl game, lost some close ones, played a crazy schedule, had 75 new players on the team because Mateer went to Oklahoma, the head coach left for Wake Forest, so we had quite the challenge out there with our schedule last year. Like we played Ole Miss, Virginia, James Madison, North Texas, Washington, Toledo. It was wild. Really fun though. Great experience to get to a bowl game, win that, and then our coach went to Iowa State, so we didn't go with, so we ended up back at UND, and we're in a really good spot here with our situation. Our head coach, Coach Schmidt, we had worked together. We both played at UND. He was with Kalen DeBoer at Washington and Fresno State, and spent a year at San Diego State before he took the job here. So we've got a really good quarterback here. I recruited him. It's kind of cool to come back and coach him. He's a Wisconsin kid from Sun Prairie, right outside of Madison. But he's got 2 years left. He'll be one of the top, hopefully one of the top guys in FCS this fall. So yeah, it's been good.
That's awesome, Coach. I'll kind of kick it off from a question standpoint, and Steve, Derek, as always, hop in where you guys want to. But Coach, from a quarterback room standpoint, what are some of the characteristics that you're looking for in the guys that you recruit and bring in to North Dakota, and maybe kind of jump into that and how you evaluate them from a soft skill standpoint.
Yeah, I think there's like obviously a bunch of different things you can look at. The big ones to me, I think like the top three that I would say, I think the leadership part of the position is so important. So leadership, I think there's a certain amount of athleticism that you have to play the position nowadays. So like athleticism that can come in different ways. And then like honestly, like just the accuracy part, like does a guy throw accurate football? Like I think those are the three things that probably jump out to me right off the get-go. There's a lot that you can look at, but I think from a leadership standpoint, like our guys captains of their team, do they have a good GPA? Are they good in their school? I think that position, there's such an it factor about making the other guys around you better when you're playing quarterback. Like there has to be some element of like you want to be a leader and you want to be able to do that with your actions and your words. Like recruiting multi-sport kids, I think you can learn a lot of development and just competitiveness playing multiple sports. And I think a lot of it translates too. I really do. I think there's a lot of specialization these days in terms of whatever sport it is. I think playing as many sports as long as you can really benefits guys in recruiting, but also just the quarterback position. I look at even a guy like Darnold last year, like he was a really, really good high school basketball player. And you see that in kind of how he plays a little bit. Joe Burrow, same thing. So I value that in recruiting. But yeah, I think the leadership part, the intangibles of just being a good worker, a good leader, I think that all carries over. And then when we go to camps and stuff and evaluate guys, I'm a big believer in like just you got to be a natural thrower. I think accuracy wise, like, you know, the one thing I look for on film and maybe during the summer too is like how accurate they are with their deep ball. I think that's a little bit harder to teach, maybe. I think some of the footwork stuff, you can always work on that, but the deep ball accuracy on film is something that probably pops out. But no, I think those things and just do you have a fast arm? Do you have fast feet? Is it natural to throw a football? Like generally I can watch a guy play catch for like 10 throws and at a camp and be like, yeah, he's a guy that I want to look more at, or it's like, nah, I can't do it. Like there's some element of that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Derek, Steve.
Go ahead, Steve.
Coach, you've done an excellent job over the course of your career. Can you kind of walk me through the current tenure for operating quarterback? And when you believe it's the right time, so it's your individual camp, or your individual camp, how important is the spring evaluation period, and then what are you looking for once you get them on campus, and how you make confident? I completely understand.
Yeah, it was a little bit tough to hear you there, but I think you were asking about just the spring evaluation period and just the process of the recruitment and kind of what we look for. Yeah, I think the big thing when we go out in the spring, obviously like quarterback wise, like I think it's so important to see a guy throw in person. I think the film can sometimes, you can make a highlight film and it looks pretty good, but we've made that mistake in the past of like not getting out and being able to see a guy throw in person. And I think there's a lot of things that you can get from that. When you go watch a guy at a high school workout, I think how confident a kid is and how he handles the workout, in terms of talking to the receivers, talking to the tight ends, talking to the running backs, just commanding the workout and just kind of having a plan for how they're doing it. It's similar to like a prospect that goes to a pro day. Do they have a script? Just how they carry themselves and how they communicate with those guys, I think says a lot about their leadership. That's one of the things that you kind of look for. Um, if they're going to a summer camp and there's other kids there, like at a combine, I think you can tell a lot about a quarterback by how they, are they the first guy in line? Do they pay attention? Do they take direction? Just like some of those characteristics that are like a little bit harder to see from just a talent standpoint because it's harder to evaluate quarterbacks because I think they're better developed now. Like everybody can throw a ball. I feel like if they go to a trainer, some of the things that I look for is just like the natural leadership ability and just like that natural athleticism of just, you know, being very natural. I think watching guys throw on the run these days is probably more important than ever because I feel like if you can naturally throw on the run, like you can teach them to throw from a base. But some of these guys like that maybe didn't play baseball or didn't play these other sports growing up, it's harder for them to throw naturally on the run. So that's one thing I look for. Um, but yeah, I think the competition part of this position is so key. One thing I've learned, like I just having gone through quarterback competitions at the college level and just like, you know, the two things that I think are so critical, the leadership part, like I mentioned, and then just having some form of mobility, just like, can you extend a play? And that's not just running a 4.5 40. That's being able to have some pocket presence, being able to extend, keep your eyes up, throwing on the run, having quick feet. I think sometimes playing this position, it's more important to have good hips and good feet than it is to run a 4.5 40. It's great when you can take off and go, but there's some element of being able to manipulate and extend plays by making guys miss within a tight space. But yeah, I think yeah, how they handle themselves. Maybe they come to a junior day and just like I've we've liked guys or passed on guys just from their demeanor on a junior day, like how they approach it, how confident they are walking around. Do they ask good questions? Are they able to be themselves and not, try too hard? I think there's a lot of those factors that maybe you get a vibe of from a guy that, whether it's a junior day or a camp or a workout, just kind of how they come across, regardless of whether they can do it athletically or not.
Yeah, absolutely, coach. From an on the field evaluation standpoint, whether they're your camp or you're watching them maybe during spring ball, are there certain throws that you're looking for? Obviously you said the deep ball earlier, but are there other throws that you're looking for them to make to be like, hey, this guy can fit in our offense, or hey, this guy can't make this throw. We gotta keep it moving.
Yeah, I think like the post ball is important. I mean, it's really just like you go and watch one-on-ones when and when they throw routes on air and just like there's no rush. Those should be a lot of times easy throws. Like if you should be able to make those throws consistently to be able to, play at our level. But yeah, I would say like being able to rip and out throw to the field. You hear a lot about that one. But I think throwing like an inbreaker on a dig is important. I think um, making some of those throws, on the run, can they sprint out and, you know, throw a comeback. Just some of that stuff. I think there's some carryover there, but a lot of times these guys are so well trained these days and well coached. But I think the accuracy, like I said, and then just being able to move around quickly and have a quick arm. I don't get caught up as much, man, in like the release. I think it's a little bit more of like how fast their arm is. You can have a little bit longer release if you've got a quick arm. kind of like a golf swing a little bit. Everybody's going to swing a little bit differently. But how effective is it? How quick is it? And how accurate is the football coming out? That's really the big things for me. And like you said, but yeah, you got to be able to make. There's a baseline for arm strength. You got to be able to make enough of the throws. Obviously, like if you can, drive it a lot, down the field, that's going to help you. But I don't think that's the most important thing. I think you got to be able to process, have anticipation. Some of those things are harder to eval at camp, I feel like. That's something maybe as you get to know the kid or watch their film and talk through some of their concepts with them, maybe you can kind of, get some of that out of them. But yeah, there's a lot of things that go into it, and you're not always right, but you try to look at a lot of these factors, and then ultimately, like I said, I think uh, these guys got to be the hardest workers on the team and in the room, and they got to love playing football because sometimes it's a tough position to play. It's not always going to go your way. Sometimes good quarterback play is boring. It's taking a check down. It's not making the mistake with the football and just kind of putting your team at risk. And there's all those factors that come into it.
Yeah, coach, absolutely. From an intangible perspective, and maybe it's just a football knowledge standpoint, how do you test those guys? Do you get them on the board, when they're on the visits, or are you installing things to see how they kind of react and take in information and spit it back out to you? Like, how do you say like, hey, this kid knows ball, he's a quick learner, or hey, I'm gonna have to teach this kid a little bit more, if he gets on campus.
Yeah, I think there's multiple things that you do. I think one of the things that I like to do is just have them draw their favorite play. It's like, hey, what's your favorite play? Talk me through it. I think that's always a good one. Um, we like to show our film and be like, hey, like this is what we call this. What do you guys call this in your offense? Or do you guys run a similar concept? And sometimes naturally they just start talking like football wise, like, yeah, oh yeah, this we like this against, a single high look, or this is a full field progression read for us, or where do you start your eyes? Oh, we start into the boundary here and work back to the field. So there's natural conversations I think that can come up of it just like watching some of your film with them and then having them draw their favorite play. One thing I do like to do is just like pull up their huddle highlight and just watch their film and get them talking because like sometimes as coaches we like to just talk too much and just like give our philosophies and all of our manuals and all this stuff and it's just like sometimes you got to let them kind of talk and just kind of you watch their film and try to hear them explain what they were seeing or what they're coached to do and the more they can teach that and spit it back to you I think the more you know interested or the more confident they are and then the more they know you can kind of take from that but they're all a little bit different. There's some guys that can just go play and and they maybe they're not as good in the room or not as good at explaining things. So there's a lot of different factors that go into it, obviously. But yeah, those are a few of the things that I like to do. Just pull up their huddle film, watch that with them, or have them draw one of their favorite plays.
That's great. Derek, go ahead.
Yeah, so coach, so how do you get these kids in front of you? Or like what's your evaluation process on seeking them out? Who gives you an idea of like who to look at or do you interact? Do you have like coaches on the side that give you information like, hey, look at this kid or visit this kid? How does that play or how hard is that for you to deal with?
Yeah, good question. Like it's different at each school I've been at. Well, not so much. Like at the higher level, maybe there's a recruiting department and they're going to filter you names and they're going to evaluate some guys and tell you, hey, you got to go here. You should go watch this kid. If there's a wider scope, maybe you're recruiting the whole country. Like maybe we were at Washington State. And not that we're not doing that in North Dakota, but we start with the high school coaches. The high school coaches you're gonna have those relationships within the region of like, hey, you need to check this kid out. He's an up and coming 2027 or 2028. Keep him on your radar. So you kind of build a board of quarterbacks maybe that are local that have started that you're kind of already looking at. For us, it's like the top guys in Minnesota, Wisconsin, the Dakotas. Like you kind of know about those younger guys a little bit earlier. Um, and then there's high school coaches there's kids that maybe come to your camp or you go to another camp. So we'll go to like some mega camps in Illinois and in Lindenwood, St. Louis, or you go to some Power Four schools and they have these mega camps. Well, you might see a kid as a sophomore or junior and be like, hey, that kid's a kid to keep an eye on. We're gonna track him. So that plays into it. You get random emails, but I would say the most part is just it's looking, I mean, social media is so big, right? So there's obviously you get on Twitter, X, and you might find a kid or two on there, or a coach reaches out about a potential prospect. But um, like I said, I think that's probably the biggest thing is just the relationship with the high school coaches, and then just you go work camps or you have your own camps and you try to get them when they're maybe sophomores or juniors, and you kind of follow their development as they go.
Okay. Yeah. So what about like smaller cities like Port St. Lucie, for instance? Like, do you ever collaborate with QB coaches? Are they allowed to reach out
Yeah,
and say, hey, can you look at this kid? Maybe he's not, maybe he doesn't meet your criteria, but hey, can you take a look at him? Type of thing. Like, have you
yeah.
done that before?
Yes, no doubt. I mean, we signed, it's funny, we are probably one of our best players ever at UND, who's a 4-year starter for us here. He was a 5'11" kid from Michigan that we signed a day before signing day because we lost a kid to a FBS school. And we had a relationship. So he's like, hey, this guy's all state. I don't know. He had a D2 offer and or a D2, commitment. So yeah, some of it just comes down to relationships, not only with high school coaches, but like guys like yourself. There's QB trainers all over the place.
Right.
I got a buddy in Naples that, from Wisconsin, played in the NFL. He's a high school coach down in Naples, and he was pushing his quarterback last year. I think he just ended up at Albany.
Nice.
And you know how competitive quarterback is. Most schools are only
Oh
going to
yeah.
take one high school kid, if that,
If
right?
that these days, right?
Because the portal is like,
Yeah.
feel like I would tell a lot of these kids like obviously you go where you can continue to develop. I think where you feel like you can keep getting better and developing, whether that's playing time or not playing time. Obviously, like you got to play. I think the experience of playing it is important, but it's not over if you don't get a scholarship to a Division 1 or Division 2 school. Like you can keep getting better, you can keep improving. And that race is just kind of your own, and just continuing to work on your best. And obviously, like you can transfer these days in college football a lot easier than you used to be able to. So that's always an option. Obviously, not that you want to be bouncing around like crazy, but this position does get tricky. Sometimes it's very competitive.
Absolutely.
Steve, what you got?
Yeah, coach, the QB training platform has changed significantly over the past 4 or 5 years. For you, spring ball is so important, and the development of a quarterback goes hand in hand with the time they're putting in. Give me an idea of your individual time, or if you have 30 minutes, what's the footwork focus? What's kind of the drill work, and what have you seen being fundamental focus for quarterbacks to find their full potential and greatest success?
Yeah, good question. I'm a big believer in the when they get to us, you can tweak maybe a little bit with their upper body, but you're gonna throw how you're gonna throw. Sometimes I feel like when you get to high school, that's you can tweak it a little bit, but like we try to work on footwork every single day. And if we have 20, 30 minutes of indie, like I would say we're going to do some routes on air with the receivers. Like we're going to throw to guys moving around. But if it's just us, like I'm a big believer in like number one, ball security. Like everything that we do in Indy, it involves you have to have two hands on the football. Like it's the number one job of the quarterback. So just being able to like be comfortable with different movements, having good ball security. We work a lot of the base bag drill with the agile bags. We do a ton of that. And I'm just a big believer in the short step, no step throws. Cause like you get to a game, you watch all this film of our guys in spring ball or last year. It's like there's so many plays within a pocket that it's not going to be like 7-on-7. Man, it's just not. It's not the same game. Like you have to be able to rotate, pick your front foot up, put it right back down, not have a long stride. Like, and the funny thing is with that is like your accuracy, I feel like, comes from not having long strides. A lot of it's just like being able to play with a good base, have a quick jab, bend your knees and be able to rotate. So just a lot of that sort of stuff in terms of playing with a good, powerful base and not having our ankles together at all when we play the position is
Yeah.
huge. And then I'll do a lot of indie of like pocket movement, being able to climb, pocket movement, being able to escape and just make those plays. And it's not crazy like off platform throws. It's just being able to make a throw on the run or hit a check down on the run or be able to climb in the pocket while keeping your eyes down the field. Because a lot of that shows up in games. And sometimes those are the plays that you can really change a game because there's going to be, especially in high school, like it's not going to be the best protection. Like you watch the NFL, the defensive lines are so much more athletic than the offensive lines. Like there's some element of like you got to be able to play off schedule. I feel like as these kids maybe go to trainers and go to 7-on-7, that's what they don't get. Like they get the throws from a platform all the time. They get you know, the 5-step plant and throw, the three and a hitch and letting it rip. They don't get as much movement stuff to be able to kind of just naturally react and play. Where that is, if you're playing 11 on 11, that's going to happen. So we try to focus a lot on footwork and then a lot on movement stuff. And I'll try to create drills that maybe happened in practice that, hey, this showed up. We need to get better at this. Just create a drill for that, like, because I think the drills have to show up on the 11 on 11. Everybody says that, but like you try to, it's like the biggest thing I think our guys can learn is like confidence and belief where they see a drill that they did and then they see them that shows up on film that they made a play because of they worked that drill. They're like, that's the drill, And I think this position. It's like it's all confidence. Like it's all
Absolutely.
confidence. Just like anything in life, I think
Mindset.
when these guys are like when these guys are confident and they believe in sometimes it's not even the plays you're running. It's like, do the players believe in the plays you're running? Because they'll make them work. It's like we've been there, so there's a lot of that too, where it's just like getting them confident with how we're drilling it and the repetitions of like, hey, this is gonna show up. You got to get really good at this.
Coach, is there a pre-snap checklist that you provide your quarterbacks that they need to go through every time, like before they, as soon as they break the huddle, boom, they're looking at safeties, looking at corners. Maybe walk us through kind of what you teach at North Dakota.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it like winning the pre-snap. I think like I think sometimes you can give too much information to guys too, so it's a little bit dependent on like what they can handle. But when we come out to the line, it's like you try to locate the safeties, right? Especially the boundary safeties, is the rotation. Like I think that's kind of where you start, and then peek the corners, and then just look at the box structure of, you know, how guys are aligned and what they can all process. But really, like you try to simplify it too. Like, hey, is this man or zone, guys? Like, is this man coverage or zone coverage? Hey, is this one high or two high? Like, just kind of start there, and then you can kind of start to, hey, what's my best beater versus this coverage? Or, run game wise, do we have six to block six? Is there a seventh guy in the box? Is there a nickel coming off the edge, or is there safety rolling down? Do we have to throw an RPO? So just like trying to give them little tips about, coverage based or just like, you know simple things that maybe they can see pre-snap, and then having a plan for post-snap is really important too. But like you said, I think, you know, how the corners are aligned, are they playing man or zone? Is it a pressure look? Right? Could this be a blitz or is it more of a base look? If it's a base look, like what do we like versus that? Hey, if there is a chance for pressure, how do we protect it, or how do we, what's our best answer in the pass game or run game to combat that? So, yeah, we do talk about it, but a little bit of it is like not overcomplicating it. Be like you said, safeties, corners, structure,
Yeah.
and then just trying to figure out, hey, man or zone, pressure, no pressure, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Depth, eyes, leverage.
Yeah.
Derek, Steve, what you guys got?
So I just wanted to ask, like, do you tailor your QB coaching to each quarterback differently, or do you come up with the same structure and each of them is going to follow that same structure? Just because, like you were saying, they're all different.
Yeah, good question. They're like I think you have to coach each guy a little differently based, like I said, based on like how they throw a football, like what their makeup is athletically, where they're at in their career. A guy that's maybe a third or fourth year into it, maybe a starter, a guy that just showed up on campus. We had a freshman quarterback that should have been in high school this spring, early enroll. So just trying to keep it simple for him and just kind of work on maybe a few different things. But with our starter last year, I just watched the 12 games that he played and just took notes and was like, hey, here's some things that were consistently like showing up with that were good, or consistently showing up. Hey, we can improve on this. Here's some things that I think could really help. Maybe you're overstriding with your back foot or overstriding with your front foot, or you're you know putting too much heat on the ball when it's just a short little throw, being flexible with your elbow. So there's like a lot of different things that I think you can get more in depth. Try to keep it as streamlined as possible, but I think it's probably mostly just like how in depth you get coaching them. I would say. But and then it's just like it's different things for different guys that you really want to focus on. Like our backup this spring is a really talented kid, but his feet were very like all over the place, inconsistent. So we just really tried to hone in on how do we make this spring really just about your feet and your stride. And it was funny, like after the first 4 or 5 practices, he just took a big jump accuracy wise, and you could see his confidence start to build. So yeah, you coach him a little bit differently, but I think your fundamentals and your beliefs, what you believe in teaching kind of stay the same. I don't know if that answered your question, but
Yes, sir. No, I appreciate it.
Coach, how about just an insight for quarterbacks that do get on campus with you? What does that look like? What are you looking for and continue to evaluate once you like them on film? One of the things that I enjoyed was a 12-month process, wiggle it down to the top 3 guys, get them on campus. How much time do you have them on the board? What do you want to see live and in color when you get a chance to shake his hand and get a chance to really know him as a human being and as a potential quarterback in your system?
yeah, the first thing I notice when I shake their hand is actually their hand size. Like, you don't want to have a small hand. It's funny. Like as quarterbacks, you shake a kid's hand. Yes, he's got big hands. Like he's 9.5 or 10-inch hands, right? It's like it's kind of funny. That's the first thing maybe that you notice, but really just like how they carry themselves, like the vibe, the confidence, like that they carry themselves with, how respectful they are to their parents. Like there's just little things I think, and when you spend a day with somebody, like honest, like it's funny. The kid we signed at Wazoo, you know, was able to spend 4 or 5 hours with him after a practice last year, and just like didn't really know him that well, but his dad came along and they were just good people, like good. They were confident. Like he in the meeting, like we watched some film. He's asking really good questions. I think guys that are genuinely curious, but also not like forcing it. There's some guys that are too much. Like he's just being himself, confident in who he was. Um, but yeah, I think if you have him on a full day visit, like the energy, does it stay up or do they kind of get drained, at the end of the visit like that? But we watch film, we get them on the board, all that sort of stuff. Obviously, if they're on campus and we're spending that much time with them, there's already been a screening process of like they check some boxes for us, like in terms of athletic ability. So now it's just kind of diving in and getting to know personality wise and just like how they carry themselves. Can they lead a team? I know one of the things Coach Schmidt likes to do with some of these guys and other places I've been is just have them get up in front of the group and introduce their parents, introduce themselves. I think that's a good skill to kind of develop in terms of just being able to run a room or lead a group of people. But yeah, like you said, I think there's physical attributes that whether you go watch a kid throw or you go to a camp that you're really looking for in terms of how do they throw the ball and how do they do physically. But when you're, like you said, when you're trying to get down to your third, your second, your first, like who are we going to offer this scholarship to first and give them that opportunity? A lot of it's just about like how tough they are, like mentally. Can you dig into that? Can you ask them questions about just like some experiences they've had, and then just how much they love it. You got to love it at this level. So when you are talking football with them, do they seem genuinely interested, and are they really just hunger, taking notes? They bring a pad with them. They want to know more. They ask good questions, like I said. So I think that all factors into it. But each situation is different. But spending that time with them to just get them know as a person, I think is huge.
Great answer. Super insightful.
Derek, Steve, I'll let you guys get your last shot in if you have one. I don't want to take too much
Um,
more of coach's time.
yeah, coach, one more, sorry.
Maybe.
So they're all kind of like the roundabout same question, but so when you're at a camp or you're hosting a camp, obviously there's a ton of kids. Do you happen to know some of the kids that might already be going out, or is there a trait that you automatically see and you're like, all right, I'm going to watch this kid on the next rep? Like, is there something that has to stand out when you obviously maybe want the kid to be at the front of the line? I think you said that earlier. But like, what really stands out if you don't know who you're looking at in this camp? If you don't really know anybody here, what has to stand out where you're like, damn, that kid might be from, a small city in Florida or any city
Yeah.
that you don't typically recruit.
Good question. Yeah, because that at Washington State last year, that was like summer camp happens. Like a lot of these quarterbacks, you maybe know their name, but you don't really know them. So
Yeah.
like you start working with them. Like I think, like you said, if you didn't know them at all, as they're warming up, as they're playing catch, the first thing I'm looking for is like, do they throw it? They throw a good ball? Does it look natural coming out? Do they look like, not a robot throwing it like, or they just can't throw? It's like, it's look
Yeah.
natural, like playing catch. But one thing that I like as the course of a camp goes on, like when I'm coaching them, like what's their response? Like, do they want to get coached? Are they really like, yes, like that's thanks, coach? Like, or like, are they eager to be coached? There's other kids that are like maybe shy away from that, or maybe have an excuse. I don't know. Like, that's maybe one of the things. And then just consistency over the course of like a camp. You kind of just like, there's some kids where you're just like, you're watching routes on air, you're like, oh, that was a good ball. And then like they just keep throwing good balls. It's just like a consistent, like that kid's kind of good. By the end of camp, that Wazoo camp last year, like there was a sophomore that was going to be a junior that we ended up offering, I think later in the fall. But I just remember him like that kid's going to be really good because he was just so consistent with his attitude, consistent with his throws, all that sort of stuff. And it just kind of by the end of camp, you're like, oh, that kid he was good. Like there was a couple that just kind of stand out that way. Um, so yeah, I wouldn't say there's any one thing. It's just like, yeah, you got to be able to throw a ball. You're a quarterback. Like, but just the other thing would be that, we do a lot of the combine testing before camp, pro agility, broad jump, 40. It's like
About 10,
there,
yeah.
there's a certain baseline of like, hey, he should run a 4.5 pro or lower. He should run a 4.9 40 or lower. Like you don't want a guy that can't broad jump 8 feet. Like you look through that stuff and you can kind of start to screen guys out. Um, but yeah, I would say just the overall level of like compete and like want to and just like consistency and performance throughout the day.
All right. I appreciate it.
Coach, I love it. You know, I appreciate you taking the time.